We understand that Brussels is a very sensitive target as it's home to the European Union, NATO, as well as other international agencies. So what message is ISIL trying to send by launching attacks there on such a big scale?
First of all, I work in Brussels 3 years, from 2008 to 2011. I traveled, the metro station, the Maelbeek, and also arrived in the airport many times. My colleagues still working in Brussels. So I very concerned, like President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang telephoned the Belgian leaders of this terror attack. To answer your question, why I selected Brussels? Of course, because it's the headquarters of the European Union and NATO. Particularly, the terrorists want to send signals that the European Union should change the policy about the migration, refugee crisis, and also the policies towards Syria and in general of the Middle East.
Right, and now let's get insights from Mr. Riecke in Berlin. Why do you think Brussels was the target of this round of attacks?
One reason is that these networks emanate from Belgium, so it has been close to home. But it is also the attempt to hit the Western world in its heart, so to speak. The most important nod for traffic and people traveling to Europe is the Belgian airport, the Brussels airport, and of course the road to the EU, where many people who are active in international politics live. So this is a very international spot to hit.
Right. Actually, ISIL feeds on fears, and now there are speculations about what triggered the attacks in Brussels. Some say that this is a revenge because police have arrested Salah Abdeslam, who was behind the Paris attacks back in November. But others say that the earlier police disbanding of a terrorist cell in Brussels was actually a catalyst. So do you think these are pre-planned attacks or are they revenge, Mr. Wang?
Well, terrorist attack in the airport should be prepared for a long time. Okay, it's not so easy. So I'm very astonished for this attack. Of course, it's a revenge to just declared I think the criminal who caused the Paris terrorist attack was just accomplished. And also, the Belgian policeman, I think, attacked the colleagues of the terrorists. So of course it's a revenge that they're very angry about Europeans' policy. Refugees, they want to save their, the Muslims. Mm-hmm. This particularly, I think, they will send a signal to them.
Well, actually, Belgium has been exposed to this great deal of danger. It's been dealing with Islamist extremist groups for years, and hundreds of its own citizens have been lured into fighting for IS in Syria and Iraq. So, Mr. Riecke, let me ask you this. What's gone wrong in Belgium, and what's the cause for so many Belgians traveling to Iraq and Syria fighting under the IS flag?
There are spots where ghettos and communities of Arab migrants live in Belgium, where there is a hotbed for radicalization and recruitment. But it's, I think, dangerous to look only at Belgium as being the most vulnerable country of Europe. I think the problems that we see exacerbated in Belgium are visible elsewhere in Europe as well. We have migrant communities that might offer a backdrop for that sort of networks, the kind of solidarity network that without doubt exists. We have underprivileged situations for many of these people, so they are more open for recruitment, but also difficulties for the police community and the agencies to cooperate in this regard. Belgium might be a specific problem because the government has for a long time been very inefficient. There is a strong, very hostile federalism in Belgium, so this might have played a role. Why the police wasn't equipped well enough and didn't pour in enough effort to win over the communities and to infiltrate, to look into the Muslim communities. Other countries might do this better. But the problem is a European one. or one for all industrialized countries, so to speak, where these communities exist, where this sort of background exists. You need to find ways to separate the extremists from the other Muslims that simply want to be normal citizens.
Well,
so
Mr.
it's very
Riecke
important
says,
to win
that
over
Europe has
the
a
Muslims
shared,
in
a
the
collective.
confrontation with the extremists.
Mr. Riecke says Europe shares a collective identity in the fight against terrorism. Mr. Wang,
Sorry?
do you think this is a case-specific thing, depending on the situation in different countries, or is Europe in the fight against terror, together?
Well, of course, should fight against together. It's not just happened because of the Belgian local problems. I think in general, it's the European Union problem. For a long time after the Second World War, the end of the Second World War, the Europeans much rely on the NATO's, Americans, military security capacity to protect them. So European Union more focused on the commercial, civilian, building up the capacity. Now there fails so many terror attacks. This is, I think, the capacity, lack of the such capacity, including politically, for the information intelligence, cannot avoid from this happening. Secondly, the system also has some problems. European Union more focused on there is not coherent of the among the 28 countries. Particularly, they have the freedom of movement of the labels, capital, and the personnel. So it's very difficult to handle this situation because European Union is not a sovereign state. And mentality for a long time also is a big problem. The European Union, I think, too much outsourcing of this capacity to the United States and the UK, who has a long experience to fighting against the terrorists. European Union, for a long time, live in a quite peace period. Mm-hmm. So this is an alert of they should enhance of the anti-terror capacity and the system mentality.
So there's a great deal of sense of regional integration in Europe. However, when it comes to intelligence sharing, are European countries doing enough to exchange information, Mr. Riecke?
I think this is a weak spot of European security cooperation. We have agreed to drop the borders, to create the Schengen space where people can move freely, but we never came up with a proper, effective system of cooperation of the law enforcement communities and the intelligence services. So when you look back at 9/11, this is like 15 years ago nearly, and the engagement of the European Union in bringing together the intelligence that we need is far from being perfect. First of all, a couple of countries are federal, as in Germany, so the first task is to bring the agencies inside the countries to really cooperate. This has been a tremendous task. There are 38 agencies somewhat looking into the prosecution of terrorism in Germany alone, but this is no excuse. I mean, if you look at the fact that now we have at Europol a center where information is shared among the allied intelligence services, where liaison officers are, and only 5 countries regularly contribute to that database. So it's impossible to know that. The Paris attacker has crossed the border between Belgium and France twice, 3 times without being noticed. So this cannot be. This has to be improved.
So, Mr. Riecke mentioned about institutional problems. What are your views on this, Mr. Wang? What do you see as the major factors hampering European countries from sharing intelligence?
Well, of course, this is highly pressed. The European Union should tighten of these cooperations. Otherwise, cannot prevent from other occasions of happening. I think, but most importantly, it's not a technician question. It's that European Union should change the policy. Particularly, they should cooperate with the United States, with Russia also, and change the policy in Syria because terrorists, they hate the European Union's policy because they treat the refugees unfairly, and most under the European countries, many of them, they are Muslimized. So the local citizens, they also feel sympathy to the refugees, to the migrants. So this policy cannot change, and in the long term, cannot, to solve this problem.
But what if there are more attacks to follow? Will this refugee crisis in Europe be shattered once and for all?
Of course, this is the shadow of this policy. For instance, the United Kingdom, want to have the vote in June, want to quit the European Union. This is make the European citizens, the European Union, face more, troubles, terrorist attack. So this is, of course, is not good for the result. But at the same time, all the European integrations, because of the crisis, this is another terror attack crisis, hopefully will put forward of the integration of the Europeans' common security and the policy coherence.
Mm-hmm. And now there are sharp divisions over Europe's policy on the refugee crisis. Countries like Germany are now still passionately defending its open door policy, while opponents actually attribute these attacks to the influx of refugees. So, Mr. Riecke, what do you think exactly is happening? What's the core cause? What's the root cause of the problem?
I believe it's important to understand that Germany doesn't have a liberal open door policies to all refugees. It's important to say that. It has been a reaction by the Chancellor to an upcoming wave of migrants who were like out in the cold, so to speak, to act from a point of charity and let them in. But it was a very severe challenge and task that was been taken very seriously to gain or regain control over that flow, to know who comes in, to redistribute the refugees, to keep them from going into Germany in the first place. So there have been a lot of measures, a package inside the European Union that has been negotiated in the past years, or in the past months. The most recent achievement, the agreement with Turkey. You can criticize that, of course, but it kept the flow at bay of refugees that came into Germany.
And
I think it's very important not to equalize the refugees with extremists and terrorists. And this is a very important point. The danger is actually that we have Salafist extremists here, and many of the refugees are like single young men traveling, and they might be like victim of this kind of recruitment. So we have to take care that they are integrated into our society, and we have to treat them with respect. Otherwise, they might fall into the hands of the extremists.